The Utah Jazz seem to be able to teach shooting, and that changes everything for the franchise. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available every single day on Locked on Jazz, on all your podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in and being an everydayer, being a part of the core of the audience, and thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We will wrap up the show today with a late game watch like we do during the playoffs. Donovan was unbelievable. We'll game note what we got from games last night. I've got some thoughts on where the NBA is going and how much they're letting everyone play, and I don't love it, honestly. Everyone wanted 1990s physical basketball. They got it. I am not a fan. We'll talk about that as well. But let's start off with what is probably the single most important thing that the Utah Jazz may have done this last year, and that is teach shooting. This was a developmental year, draft position year. We did it very well. Everything was executed well. But let's look at 4 young players and what the Jazz have been able to do with them. Let's start with the long-term project of Johnny Juzang. I don't know if Johnny Juzang, what his future in the NBA is. He became a rotation player for a team that had the worst record in the NBA. But Johnny Juzang, in his 3 years in the NBA, has gone from shooting 24% from 3 to 42% from 3 to 38% from 3. And if we go back to the player that the Jazz drafted, Johnny Juzang was a moderate but not particularly heavy three-point shooter at UCLA at 19 years old. He took about a third of his shots. Then in his junior year at UCLA, he takes 125 of his 415 shots as threes. He makes a decent amount of them. And he's got a great free throw shooting percentage, which is usually the precursor to tell you. But if you look at Johnny Juzang's career G League numbers, and this is where the Jazz were able to put this all together, is in the G League, is that he doesn't start as a three-point shooter. This is a guy who's largely a mid-range shooter, and he comes out and plays in the G League trying to get himself his kind of three-point shooting numbers up, and it's not his natural thing to do. And he's developed brilliantly a three-point shot. He was in 23-24 in the G League. He shot 32% from 3. And then he shot 36 the year before that, and he went out down to the G League. He took 9 a game. And they came to the Jazz in the 22-23 season. Didn't shoot him great. And in 23-24, he shot 42%. And this year, taking 5 threes a game, he shot 38%. The Jazz and Johnny, the player has to do the work. But the Jazz taught Johnny Juzang how to shoot. Brice Sensabaugh, 29.6% from 3 as a rookie. Again, his college career at Ohio State, he was mostly a mid-range player, took 148 of his 410 shots as threes, and he shot them well. And again, 83% free throw shooter in college. So the data is there that's available. And this year, Brice Sensabaugh, fabulous, 42% from 3. And if you walk through the year, one of the more impressive things about the year is that when Brice starts playing in December, he struggles with his shooting. Brice plays 13 games in the opening part of the year, but he's not really a part of the rotation. He's shooting the ball fine. Then he gets a little bit more action in December, gets his minutes per game up to about 18. and he only shoots 35% from three. And then January opts it up to 39. February stays there. He increases his minutes to 23 in March, and he shoots 50% from three. And he closes the year after March 1, hitting 73 of his final 155 threes, just about 50%, a little under. I don't know if the Jazz unleashed Brice Sensabaugh or taught him how to shoot. What I would tell you, they did work on his footwork. They did change his release, and the end result is that he learned how to shoot. Kyle Filipowski. Kyle Filipowski kind of had an up and down little run, and you have to dig in a little bit on Filipowski, but Kyle Filipowski goes from disaster to red hot to then ice cold. But if we start with Kyle Filipowski's open of the season, he hits a few threes, and then it kind of goes awry. Goes awry badly. From about the 12th game that he plays to about the middle of the season, he goes 4 of 28 from three. Stretch it out a little bit longer, and you get to the 34th game of the year against Milwaukee, and he's 12 of his last 48 from threes at 25% for an extended stretch. And then he goes nuts. And this is because Andrew Warren, Jazz assistant coach, along with Mike Williams, work adamantly and feverishly on his shot to see what they can figure out. They change 3 movements to 1, and Kyle Filipowski then goes on a stretch for the next 25 games where Kyle Filipowski shoots 47% from three. It's pretty incredible. From the 3rd of February, it's actually 26 games, he shoots 47 of his next 100. And then, I don't know if he gets tired, if he got banged up. He was wearing something on his wrist, but he closes the year going 9 of his last 50. So not great. Now, what's interesting about Kyle is, unlike Johnny Juzang and unlike Brice Sensabaugh, where the data shows that free throw shooting in college is a better indicator than three-point shooting, Kyle has not been a good free throw shooter for a while. He was 67% as a senior at Duke, and he was 65% for the Jazz last year. That's a little bit of an unnerving number, because that leads one to believe that he shouldn't ever be a particularly good three-point shooter, but the Jazz turned him into one for a while. If the Jazz can teach people how to shoot, this changes everything. The last one that I was just going to take a quick look at is Isaiah Collier, who had, as we talked about, one of the worst three-point shooting percentages of anyone in the league. But there is a little interesting note on Isaiah Collier here this year that might be a sign. What the Jazz worked on predominantly with Isaiah Collier this year was free throw shooting. Isaiah Collier did not shoot free throws well for much of this year, and the Jazz finally went and worked on his free throw shooting. And he closed the year shooting free throws much better. In March, he hit 72%. In April, he hit 79%. If we just kind of flip the last 20 games of the year of free throw shooting. So if we take Isaiah Collier up until about February or March 1, first 50 games of the year, Collier shoots 61% from the line. That's horrific. We flip it on the 51st game of the year. Just a round number, not necessarily the answer. And take it to the 71st game of the year where he pulls his hamstring. He closes the year making 74% of his free throws. His three-point shooting was still 25%. His off-the-bounce three-point shooting seemingly looks better than his regular. But it's interesting. There's another sign of it. Okay. That's a pretty decent track record. Now, they played around and they drafted KJ Martin, or they traded for KJ Martin, they traded for Jaden, picked up Jaden Springer, and they picked up a bunch of guys who can't shoot, who haven't been able to shoot in their career. And if they can teach them how to shoot, we've got something. If you can get Keontae George to be a little bit better shooter, you've really got something. If you have this ability, we'll talk about some more in a second. You can change how you acquire players in the franchise. Now, I will throw a caveat on that, but I will also show the best example of that next when we continue on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by the Amazon Fire Stick. This is pretty great. Whether you're on the road or at home, did you know that the Fire TV is also an Xbox? That's right. You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with a Fire TV stick, 4K devices, no console required. So you just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included. So you're diving into EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, whatever it might be. So the latest technology for elevated playing, which is Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and low latency mode, advanced technology. The Fire TV stick delivers smooth, responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds. You need to stay competitive. Endless entertainment, 1.5 million movies, TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime, Disney, and all while streaming on 4K. Pretty impressive. Hardcore gaming experience can be brought to you with the Fire TV stick, and it is a game changer. Fire TV stick provides you with every other great entertainment choice as well. So head to Amazon.com, Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Unlimited subscription, compatible controller required, available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. That's all at Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Let me say that again. I keep screwing it up. Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. If the Jazz can teach people how to shoot, you suddenly walk into the Oklahoma City game. Because Oklahoma City has done this. To me, this is what's interesting about Oklahoma City is Chip England is one of the coaches who was in San Antonio who worked with Will Hardy. But if you let's just take 4 or 5 of their players. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP of the league. 3-point shooting, 30% in 21-22. 35, now 38. Pretty great. The most incredible one is Lu Dort. 29, 34, 33, 33. Chip England joins their staff, 39 and 41%. Lu Dort, great defensive player, beast, wasn't someone you could necessarily play in playoff games or important games. Now all of a sudden shooting 40% from 3 the last 2 years. Isaiah Joe's not the perfect example because Isaiah Joe at Arkansas was bombing threes. I remember him in the draft, loved him because he had taken 275 of his 360 shots as threes, but he was only making 34%. He goes to Philadelphia. He spends 2 years in Philadelphia, shoots 33%. The last year they let him go. Since he goes to Oklahoma City, 41, 42, 41. Pretty amazing. Aaron Wiggins, this is where it gets really interesting. Aaron Wiggins comes out of Maryland. He plays 3 years at Maryland. He shoots 36% from 3, 1 year at 32. Pretty decent free throw shooter. 1 year was up as high as 87, other years at 77. He comes to Oklahoma as a 6'6", late draft pick. In his first year in the NBA, shoots 30% from 3. Now 39. Last year, 49. This year, 38. If you can teach these guys how to shoot threes, you can take that second-round draft pick and convert him into something. Now, Oklahoma City hasn't been perfect. They might have made the progress they needed to on Osam Jang, their first-round draft pick. He's gone from 27 to 30 to 32. Maybe that's all he could have done. Because I still fundamentally am not necessarily a believer that you can teach shooting unless the player comes with some of the things we've talked about. Decent free throw percentage, decent starting point. There are players that enter in this league whose base level of shooting is so bad, and I believe strongly, and we'll get into this next week, that there are certain standards that if you do not hit, you don't become a shooter in this league. Coming in, if you're not at a certain level. But the guys we're talking about here on both these sides have been guys that have been able to come in with a little set of skill and then pop. Okay, there's a flip side. Ochai Agbaji shot 36% his first year with us and then slipped to 33, then went to 40 this year in Toronto. So that might be a case where he's now doing it somewhere else, which isn't great. Now, Brice Sensabaugh doesn't play if we still have Ochai Agbaji on the roster. But if you suddenly can teach shooting, it is a game changer to the franchise, and it is what has changed Oklahoma City. Okay. I don't know if you want to say it's changed Boston also, but it could have. I mean, Peyton Pritchard just won Sixth Man of the Year. He came being able to shoot. He had great numbers coming in as a shooter and was 40% as a rookie. So I don't think I would classify him as that. Jaylen Brown was not, but that's a number 3 pick of the draft that's just so skilled. And he still shot 30. He's still a questionable shooter. So I'm not sure I go Boston on this one necessarily. All right. So we're done there. Oklahoma City's doing it. If the Jazz can do it also, it is a game changer. I don't love where the NBA playoffs are right now. The games are great. The games are okay. They haven't been close for the last 2 days. I'd rather see Steph Curry be able to run around the floor than Amon Thompson hold Steph Curry all night. I'm not interested in watching NBA players be held. I'm not interested in NBA players not being able to move. Now, it's interesting. The Cleveland-Miami game had an offensive explosion, while simultaneously a bunch of games have had below a point of possession. But to me, we have, I believe Tom Haberstroh had this the other day, we have the lowest foul rate going on at any point ever in the history of the NBA right now. So clearly there's an effort on behalf of the NBA to not call fouls. And some of it, to me, seems a bit much. And I don't know that I also want to see a parade to the free throw line, which is clearly what the NBA is trying to prevent. But I'm just going to say it. I feel like we're heading the other direction now. So that would be my feeling. Is that true? I just saw something flash across my... Did I miss this yesterday? Did CJ McCollum get an extension? Wow. Is that true? I don't think so. No. Okay. Didn't think so. That would have not made any mistake. Sorry, got distracted there for a second. Thought that flashed across things. But, okay. Let's look at, by the way, one note. Back to Peyton Pritchard for a second. That's a Danny Ainge draft pick. 6th man of the year. 26th pick of the draft out of Oregon. Kind of had all the numbers that showed he was going to be a good NBA player. Had played 4 years in college. So people are a little hesitant about him, but was just through the charts on everything else. He's in a great situation, wins 6th man of the year. So another elite level Danny Ainge draft pick right there. Game notes from around game 2s of the NBA and a late game watch. And an interesting note about who's getting what in the Houston Golden State series. Next, when we continue on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. This is my time of year because I love concerts. For you, it might be NBA playoffs, but whatever it is, the answer is Game Time. Buddy of mine I was with yesterday was telling me about how he just used Game Time all year to go to hockey games. It's the electricity of the arena, the fire up of the music, whatever it is you're looking for this summer, and take it in with Game Time. They make it fast and easy to get your tickets. Even when demand is sky high, prices often on the app drop as you get closer to the event. Last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Get those last-minute deals, saving up to 60% through priority with Game Time. Also, all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout, which is awfully nice. I like the seat view as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem your code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Game Time. Few notes from the games around the NBA. Tomorrow, by the way, Ask LOJ edition of Locked on Jazz. And then next week, we'll delve into the numbers. I'm going to try to work on my sheets this weekend and see if I can get them all up to date. We've really begun to find some things. I'm actually trying to get my computer science kid to see if he can build me some projects on it so that it actually pulls it like 20 years worth of data instead of doing it manually. We'll see. Golden State's offensive rating was under 100 last night. They got blasted. Jimmy Butler went out of the game. All their weaknesses from earlier in the year showed up. Yet, their QSQ, which is quantified shot quality, is so far superior to Houston's, it's crazy. Golden State, if they shot average, would shoot 54.2% effective field goal percentage. And if Houston, on their shots, shot average, they would shoot 49.7. It's a pretty good indicator for Golden State for the rest of the series. What is interesting in yesterday's game, and seems strange to me, is that Houston, who was 26th in the league in shooting last year, or this year, and is not a particularly good half-court offensive team, one had a very, very good shooting night. They're in the 77th percentile of all shooting, but had an unbelievable half-court offensive game. Houston's offensive rating last night in the half-court was a 117.1. I'm not sure they had a better half-court game all year, frankly. In fact, I looked it up because that's it. And Houston, when I looked, had a grand total of 5 half-court offensive games better than last night all year. San Antonio in November, December and January, New Orleans in December, New Orleans in March, and Denver in March. That's it. That feels like we're going to talk about physicality. Everyone's going to talk about all those things in that series and this, and it got it. The truth is that Houston, who was not a good half-court offensive team, scored in the half-court last night at a very high level. I don't know that I think they can replicate that. That's why I've been not very bullish on them. Obviously, if Jimmy Butler's out for the series, it changes everything. But Houston is not a particularly good half-court team. Houston and the Jazz were the exact same, tied for 22nd in the league in half-court offense. And they had this monster game. I'm not buying, I guess is what I'm telling you. They were in transition 16 times to the Golden State's 8. The concern I have for Golden State, this is not new, they have 0 pick-and-roll game at all. And if they're just going to let Golden State be held all game, then it's really hard to play off-ball screens. You have to have some player movement allowed if you're going to have off-ball screens. Orlando, Boston. This is my other fear. It's where I got lost a little bit in the last segment. I couldn't figure out whether I wanted to do it then or now. I'm doing it now. Oh, we forgot to do Tankathon. There were 75 field goals in that game and 35 assists. That's it. Boston only threw 243 passes. There were 52 possessions of isolation in that game. If you do all this, allow all this holding and grabbing, everything else, everything becomes an isolation game. That's my concern. That's why I'm not particularly bullish on where the league is going with the way that they're letting things be held. All right, before we get to Miami, Cleveland, and late game watch, dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. It's time for the daily lottery. Let's see how the Utah Jazz do. Yesterday was a disaster. We finished in the worst possible position, 5th. We have a 52% chance of being top 4. We have a 14% chance of being top 1. Here we go. And the Utah Jazz drop to 5th in the lottery. Again, Chicago comes from the 11th spot with an 8% chance to get or 1.7% chance to get the number 1 pick. And the Chicago Bulls get Cooper Flagg with the number 1 pick. New Orleans gets the 2nd pick of the draft and takes Dylan Harper. And Washington gets the 3rd pick of the draft and probably takes Ace Bailey. And Philadelphia goes 4th. And the Jazz drop to 5th for the 2nd straight day. Tragedy. 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 5th and 21st for the 2nd straight day. All right, late game watch. Cleveland went 22 of 45 from 3 in this game, so they had 3-point variance on their side. Miami's getting better shots. Over 50% of the shots in this game were threes by both sides. Miami's averaging 1.3 points per drive. That's the concern on Cleveland, is that the guards are so small that people are going to be able to drive them. Cleveland ran 86 picks in this game. So they're just playing high pick and roll most of the game. Late game watch. Cleveland's really free until Donovan just got hot and went ISO. Cleveland's really free flowing. It's super impressive. They're running Garland, Strus, and Mitchell up top, but it's not set plays. They're moving. They're coming off handoffs. They're very free flowing. Kenny Atkinson has that thing figured out. It's very impressive. Then Donovan just got going, played pick and roll, snaked the pick and roll, went underneath for a beautiful, beautiful play. And then Donovan just got hot, and he was great. He was absolutely incredible. Hit a tough shot on the right baseline, hit a floater, hit 2 threes, scored 30 points again. Was just absolutely marvelous. Miami scored a lot on that one too. And Hero, 2 things on Tyler Hero. One, he's going to Darius Garland, who is small. Like, this is going to be, it's not going to be an issue here because Cleveland's better than Miami, but it's going to be an issue. It'll be interesting in the 4-5 series whether Indiana beats Milwaukee, if they can take advantage of that. I don't know if they can. The other one that will be interesting on this, to me, is that Tyler Hero was like this player nobody wanted, and now is like a borderline star. Like, who's that guy now? Who's the guy everyone's lukewarm on that a year later you're looking back like, wait, why didn't people trade for Tyler Hero? Like, Portland could have gotten Tyler Hero for Damian Lillard. Like, do it. Would have been a good trade. Tyler Hero's really good. Might be better than Damian Lillard at this point. That is Locked on Jazz today. Ask LOJ edition tomorrow. Send them to me on any of the social platforms at DLock09 or email me at dlock09@gmail.com. If you like the show today, follow, subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star reviews, greatly appreciated. Now we send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel on Locked on NBA. Plus, check out Game Night, every game, every night on Locked on NBA.